Hey everybody, Jane here. And I recently read Omnibus Volume 1 of The Boys. And I kind of wanted to have a discussion about this versus the TV show. And I didn't want to do two separate videos because I didn't think I had quite enough to say to make it two videos. But just know going in that this video, there could be spoilers for The Boys. There's definitely going to be some spoilers for the graphic novel. So I would love to have you along for the ride, but just be aware you might be spoiled. So if that's a big deal to you, you might not want to hang out here right now. And there's also maybe going to be a little bit of salt because I didn't love this. Before we get started though, please subscribe if you are not already. Remember to like the video at the end if you do enjoy it. My social media is below, as are links to my books. I'm a romance novelist. So yeah, on to discussion of The Boys. So for anybody who doesn't know, both the book and the TV series of The Boys exist in a world where there are superheroes, and some of those superheroes are not really good guys. In both the book and the TV show, there is a particular group of like elite superheroes that are called the Seven. And one of the members of the Seven is named A-Train. And at the beginning of the TV series and the beginning of this graphic novel, A-Train runs into, and his superpower is super speed. He runs into and kills a girl named Robin. Robin has been in a romantic relationship with a man named Huey, and Huey is obviously devastated. This creates an opportunity for Butcher, who's the character featured on the cover, to kind of bring Huey into their ranks of the boys. The boys are a group who are kind of watching out for superheroes, to try to keep them in line, to make sure they're not being super terrible. And I'll be really honest, in the comic I was less aware of their mission. In the show, we're mostly focusing on the Seven. In this, it's all mutants and superheroes, and there's I think they're part of the government, of the CIA maybe, but that gets kind of confusing to me. Like, it got confusing what they were actually doing and who they worked for. There is definitely connections to the government, but I just wasn't always sure what we were trying to do here. There's a little note in the back of The Boys, this one, from the creator, I guess it's in the front, about how this whole thing got started. So my understanding is that the person who created the series basically wanted to be published by DC Comics and wanted to take the DC creatures, superheroes, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, and create an alternative world where those people were not the good guys. And of course he was told no, because DC wants to keep their superheroes, relatively unmarred. And so instead he created this world, and you have superheroes who are very similar in some ways to the other DC characters, but I will say, I think in this particular work, as opposed to the TV show, it's a little less on the nose. I think in the TV show, you can almost look at each character and be like, oh, this is who that is. Like, this is what DC character they were pretending to be. Or I didn't think it was quite as on the nose in the comics, but or in the graphic novel, but in the graphic novel, there's also a lot less focus on the Seven and just more focus on the superhero community, which I liked, but I didn't, because with the show, you know the Seven are the bad guys, or at least some of the Seven are the bad guys. In this, there's just a lot of superheroes, and you don't get that intimacy with them that you do in the TV show. I will also say, in the comic, I felt like they took themselves way more seriously than the show. The show, I feel like, knows it's spoofy and satirical, and that it's asking that question of, what if superheroes were bad? But I feel like it's doing it in a like a scary movie or a date movie or a not another teen movie type way of the shows that we watched, you know, in the 90s and early 2000s that were spoofs of, you know, the tropes in these things. And they knew it. And The Boys has that feel of tongue-in-cheek and laughing at itself in the show. This takes itself pretty seriously, and I didn't love that. And I think part of that is, in the show, there's a lot of really graphic, crazy, over-the-top stuff. That stuff's in here too, but in the show, again, it's more of a spoofy nod to, we know we're being over the top. This doesn't have that kind of self-awareness, if that's what it's trying to do. And it may be, it may think it's serious, and it may be serious, but it just, I didn't like all the over-the-top stuff in this one nearly as much as in the show. In the show, we know we're being over the top. We know we're being spoofy. We know we're being crazy. In this, it's much more serious, and we're not trying to be spoofy and crazy and make fun of superheroes and superhero shows. And I felt like that was probably the worst thing about this, is it is not nearly as entertaining because it's not trying to be satirical. Now, despite not trying to be satirical, I think some of the characters in the Seven in this one look crazier than in the TV show. This, I assume, is the Deep. I'm not really sure who that is, but you know, in the show they don't look like that. Also, I will say, and I think this is an important thing to note, the show is much more diverse, character-wise. So, for instance, in the show, A-Train is black. Maeve is also, in the show, bisexual. And she is not, she's not cute and blonde like she is in this. And in the show, we have a lot more overall diversity of characters. Anyway, so I think for a book that's trying to be serious, there are sometimes that it goes kind of far in being not serious, but it's just not funny in the way that the show is. Like, the show, when it's being over the top and not serious, you know it and it's fine. In this one, it doesn't work for me. And I love comic books. And I know that comic books are kind of crazy. But I really enjoyed the craziness. And when I say crazy, I mean sexual content. I mean violence. I mean just ridiculous stuff. There is a superhero in this who has a sexual addiction, and he destroys a bomb, maybe, by fucking it to death. There is a scene with, you know, some crazy drugs and prostitution, and again, it in the show, when they do things, a lot of times, you know it's spoofy, you know it's making a point. In this, it because it's serious, it really just lands differently. A couple other things that I think are important differences that maybe made me not like this as much as the show. And it is possible too, I want to point out that my enjoyment of this might have been better if I had not watched the show beforehand and was not looking at this through the eyes of somebody who watches the show. Huey is a lot less lovable in this. In the TV show, Huey is very much like a geek, but the kind that you'd find on The Big Bang Theory. Like, he's a lovable, geeky, kind of attractive, but in a geeky way, kind of guy. And in this, I just didn't get that. He's like, the first scene we have, he's talking about UFO theories. And he's just a different kind of geeky. And not one that I was able to appreciate and connect with the same way as Huey on the show. And Huey in the show also, you can see, is really in over his head, but he's just so in love with Robin before she was killed, and you can kind of see his motives. And I think with this Huey, that wasn't as clear. It wasn't as clear, kind of who he was as a character. He isn't over his head, but it's not in a cute way. It's not in a cute way. It's not in a way that we can relate to, where he's obviously just being like, I'm here and I'm in so over my head, I don't know what to do, but this is all happening around me, so I'm just gonna go with it, which is very much in the show what he does. And in this, he just didn't have that personality. I really did not like this Huey nearly as much. There are also two characters in the show that develop very differently. There is the Frenchman, whose name I can't remember because it's been a while since I've watched the show. And there is a girl who is, in this, she's just called the female. But here's kind of a general picture of what the crew looks like. This is Mother's Milk, this is the Frenchman, and this is the female. And in the show, Mother's Milk, is actually probably my favorite character. He is very enduring. He has a little girl who he just wants to protect and get back to, and a wife. And this is not that character at all. He does have a daughter, but his daughter is a grown-up, and she hates him, and they have all this complexity in their relationship, but again, that's not super talked about in this. Like, it's not as big into play as, like, him wanting to get back to his daughter in the show. The Frenchman and the female, I don't remember her name in the show, but in the show, she is this girl who has been basically trafficked, and they rescue her on one of their first operations, and she can't talk. And her and Frenchie form a friendship. In this, we get almost no backstory on either Frenchie or the female, just that they are both crazy killers. Also, Butcher, in the show, his motivation and his reason that he hates superheroes is that one of the superheroes in the Seven killed his wife. He believes that he killed his wife. And he wants revenge because he really, is feeling that. I don't remember if his motivation is the same in this one, but I didn't think so. Like, there wasn't any mention of it, or if there was mention, it was really vague. It was just not super detailed in here about why he was the way he was. At least that I remember. And I read this over the course of like 3 months because it was so slow, and I just wasn't enjoying it. So it's possible I missed some stuff, but there was so much going on, and not a lot of it was, it didn't have as much cohesion, I think, as the show. And that's okay. If you were reading it as an individual comic issue, maybe it would have worked, but I was trying to read it as like an omnibus, like a season, and sometimes I was just like, where are we going with this? What are we doing with all of this? And so, yeah, I think, like I said, the biggest thing about this that I didn't like is everything is very serious. It's like it is an alternative universe where super villains are bad, but it's also crazy antic out there. There's a lot of sex, there's a lot of violence, but it's not cute and spoofy and over the top. It's just there. And I couldn't appreciate it in the way I can appreciate it in the TV show. So I don't think I will be reading any more of this. Although I have to say, like, the art, gotta make sure I don't open to a page that has anything too offensive in it, because there's a lot of pages like that. But the art in these is really pretty. And you know, I like... Here's a reasonably safe page. So here's some of the art. It is beautiful art. I really appreciate the art. And graphic novels and comics can sometimes get too anime-ish for me, too cartoony, and I don't like that. But this has beautiful art. I liked the visuals of it. I appreciated some of the humor, although again, for this it takes itself much more seriously. I love the introduction where the author was explaining what he was trying to do and how this came about. Although, again, I think he really wanted to make an alternate universe with a serious discussion about what if superheroes were bad. Whereas The Boys is more of a spoofy, you know, if you have superpowers, of course you're going to have bad apples. And what if Superman or Captain America or whoever, you know, the people who is everybody in the world's darling, who they look up to the superhero, what if he's really a jerk? So there also in the show is a huge romance between Huey and Starlight, and they do meet and hang out for like 5 minutes. Starlight is one of the superheroes in the 7. They do meet and they hang out for a few minutes or a few pages in this, but it really isn't very sparky. There's not a lot of like romance. It doesn't become a thing. You don't get invested in it like you do in the show. Although she does have, in the show, Starlight is a new character who has come to the 7. And she is sexually assaulted by the Deep, who is one of the other superheroes of the 7 in the show. In this one, all the dudes pretty much sexually assault her. And they've been sexually assaulting the other girl too, Queen Maeve. And nobody seems to care in this. And it was just very frustrating. Oh, a couple other things I wanted to point out about this, too, because I think it's necessary to say. There's a lot of homophobic content in this. And I didn't think it was necessary. There's a lot of unnecessary homophobic content. So, obviously, if that's something you don't like, and not my favorite thing to read, obviously, that could definitely hamper your enjoyment as well. Lots of just unnecessary homophobic content. So, that's another thing I didn't enjoy. And it is from characters who we're supposed to be rooting for. And like I said, in the show, we have Queen Maeve, who is bisexual, and that opens some interesting discussion, and you might have some discussion there, but this was not that. It was not that kind of content. So, I did not enjoy it the way I wanted to enjoy it. I thought I was getting one thing, I got something else. So, have you read The Boys and watched the show? If so, which did you do first? Did you read the graphic novel first and then watch the show? Do you like one more than the other? If I didn't love this omnibus, should I continue? Do things get better? Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what I need to know. I do plan to continue the TV series because I enjoy that. I didn't end up loving this graphic novel, and it made me very sad that I didn't, because I do enjoy the show. So yeah, tell me your thoughts about anything related to the boys. And I will see you guys next time. This has been Jane.